Our entire life depends on how our brain functions and how effectively we use it. Today, we'll explore why we sometimes understand what's beneficial for us, like starting a blog for extra income or personal growth, but fail to act on it. Why does this happen? Let's dive into the brain's inner workings to find out. The brain's complexity. Our brain isn't a single, monolithic entity. It's a computing center where multiple processors operate simultaneously, often in conflict with one another. You could say it's a collection of natural intelligences, unlike artificial ones like ChatGPT or DeepSeek, which focus on specific tasks like processing words. The brain's key regions include prefrontal cortex. Located in the anterior part of the frontal lobe, this area handles rational thinking, planning, and decision-making. It's where we process language and form our sense of self. For instance, when you plan to start a blog, this part of the brain recognizes the benefits, like additional income or perks. Need centers. Found in deeper structures like the brainstem, these control basic drives, what Freud called the unconscious. These centers govern needs like hunger, fear, laziness, and anxiety, which can override rational plans. For example, you might logically decide to start a blog, but fear of embarrassment or failure, driven by these need centers, stops you. Or laziness kicks in, urging you to conserve energy by sleeping instead of exercising. These programs evolved for survival. Laziness saves energy, while fear and anxiety protect us from danger. However, in modern life, they often act as anti-heroes, blocking productive actions. Brain activity and energy consumption. Our brain is always active, even when we're not consciously thinking. Unlike artificial neural networks, which process specific tasks, our brain maintains constant background activity, like a car idling. This allows us to react quickly to environmental changes, but it comes at a cost. The brain consumes a ton of energy, about 20% of the body's total energy, even at rest. Intense thinking only increases this by a few percent, so no, you can't lose weight by thinking hard. This constant readiness requires significant energy expenditure. Chronic stress amplifies this noise, interfering with clear mental processes. Too much activation can hinder problem solving or planning, as emotional signals drown out rational ones. Interestingly, about half of the brain's neurons are dedicated to inhibition, preventing unnecessary signals to help us focus. Volitional control, like sticking to a task despite distractions, relies on these inhibitory systems, which mature slowly, tire quickly, and are sensitive to stress or inflammation. Social media and information overload. Many of us spend hours on social media or reading news, consuming information nonstop without giving our brain a break. This constant input can worsen cognitive abilities. Instead of processing information deeply, we overload short-term memory, and most of what we consume goes in one ear and out the other, never reaching long-term memory. Sleep is crucial for processing data. Our sleep is divided into paradoxical sleep, 20%, characterized by active brainwaves. This phase is linked to transferring short-term memories to long-term storage. Slow-wave sleep, 80%, with slower brainwaves, 2 to 4 Hz. This phase involves global processing of accumulated information, forming generalizations and associations. Poor sleep disrupts these processes, impairing learning and creativity. Unlike computer memory, which stores data statically, our memory is dynamic. Neurons and their connections, lipid membranes and protein molecules, degrade within a month or two and need constant renewal. Slow-wave sleep refreshes these connections, ensuring memories remain intact. Without enough sleep, this renewal falters, affecting mental clarity. Dopamine fasting. The constant stream of new information from social media triggers dopamine release, providing instant gratification without deeper processing. This informational fast food is like junk food. It feels good but doesn't enrich our worldview. Over time, it can stunt cognitive growth, leaving our vocabulary and understanding stagnant. Nomophobia, the fear of being without a mobile device, is a real issue. Try locking your phone away for 2 hours and observe your reactions. If you feel anxious or start inventing ways to access it, your brain is hooked on dopamine from novelty. Dopamine fasting, abstaining from social media, news, or junk food, can help. Personal experience shows that a week without social media boosts productivity, frees up time, and reduces mental clutter, allowing the brain to focus on meaningful tasks. Physical activity and brain health. Movement is a powerful brain booster. Of the brain's 90 billion neurons, about 2/3 are involved in coordinating movement. From muscles to balance and skin sensitivity. The cerebellum, the center of motor learning and memory, ensures movements are precise and efficient. Complex movements, like dancing or sports, stimulate dopamine release in two areas. Ventral tegmental area handles the joy of novelty. Substantia nigra drives the joy of movement. When you move, especially in new or complex ways, your brain gets a dopamine surge, enhancing mood and cognition. Muscles also release myokinase, hormone-like molecules that improve cardiovascular health, break down fat, and signal the brain to function better, particularly in the hippocampus, the short-term memory center. This makes exercise a direct enhancer of learning and memory. A 5-minute movement break during work can reboot your brain, clearing short-term memory and reducing stress. Longer activities, like fast-paced walks, 10,000 steps a day, team sports, or dancing, are even better. Dancing, with its complex, novel movements and social interaction, is especially effective, providing a sea of dopamine that boosts cognitive health and even counters signs of Alzheimer's in older adults. Social connection and loneliness. As social beings, human connection is vital for brain health. Face-to-face interactions, especially with touch, release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, fostering feelings of friendship, love, and attachment. This applies to hugging a loved one, petting a pet, or even cuddling a soft toy. Even anthropomorphic robots can provide some benefits for lonely individuals, though they're no substitute for real human connection. Loneliness is a growing epidemic, especially in megacities where people feel isolated despite being surrounded by others. In extreme cases, like Japan's hikikomori, individuals withdraw entirely, driven by anxiety or past failures, such as failing exams or losing a job. These individuals, often supported by parents, face significant social challenges, with over 1 million hikikomori in Japan alone. Modern life makes living alone easier than ever, but this amplifies laziness and anxiety programs, discouraging us from sharing space or resolving conflicts. Building relationships, like raising a child, requires effort but brings profound emotional rewards. For example, becoming a parent can shift your perspective, revealing depths of emotion that theory alone can't convey. Stress and its effects. Stress profoundly affects the brain, with distinct impacts from acute and chronic forms. Acute stress, short-term stress, like meeting a deadline, can be beneficial. It releases norepinephrine, a molecule related to adrenaline, creating feelings of excitement and victory when you overcome a challenge. This is why deadlines can boost productivity, as long as the stress is temporary, hours to a few days. Chronic stress. Prolonged stress, driven by hormones like cortisol and corticotropin-releasing hormone, makes the brain more anxious and cautious. Cortisol signals the liver to release glucose for energy, a mechanism suited for physical survival but less useful for modern psychological stressors like economic or personal problems. Chronic stress disrupts emotional balance, skewing behavior toward anxiety, depression, or avoidance. 3 neurotransmitters maintain emotional balance. Dopamine drives joy from novelty and movement. Norepinephrine fuels excitement and overcoming challenges. Serotonin controls negative emotions, preventing emotional swings. Low serotonin can lead to emotional volatility, even during positive experiences like falling in love, as negative emotions aren't adequately suppressed. For example, unrequited love can trigger extreme emotional highs and lows if serotonin isn't balancing the dopamine and norepinephrine surge. Chronic stress also contributes to burnout, particularly in social professions like medicine or teaching. It dulls empathy, reducing people to job descriptions rather than individuals. Signs include reduced humor, feeling trapped in a cycle, and more negative than positive emotions. Chronic stress signals the brain that you're not fitting into the environment, urging caution and avoidance, which is inappropriate for modern challenges that require active engagement. Hormonal mechanisms of stress. Stress begins in the brain's thinking centers, where worries about the future, like financial instability or health, trigger psychological stress. These thoughts activate the hypothalamus and amygdala, which convert psychological stress into hormonal signals. Key hormones include cortisol, produced by the adrenal glands. It releases glucose reserves for energy, suited for physical survival but problematic in chronic stress, as it heightens anxiety. Corticotropin-releasing hormone transmits stress signals from the brain to the adrenals, acting as a generator of negative emotions. These hormones, along with immune system molecules like cytokines, e.g., interleukin-1, tumor necrosis factor, can prolong anxiety and depression, as seen in post-COVID cases where inflammation persisted for months. Epigenetics and long-term impact. Stress and trauma can alter gene expression through epigenetics, changes in how genes function without altering DNA. Prenatal stress, childhood trauma, or chronic stress can tune down genes related to dopamine or serotonin, increasing anxiety or reducing initiative. For example, severe psychological trauma can impair these genes, but long-term psychotherapy can reverse these changes, restoring healthier gene expression. These epigenetic shifts affect not just the brain but also the liver, immune system, and hormonal balance, increasing risks for diseases like diabetes or cancer. This means life events can reprogram how our body and brain function, making us a bit different at a biological level. Productivity and flow state. Entering a flow state, where you're highly productive and focused, happens when your skills are well developed for a task, with just enough novelty to keep you engaged. Too much novelty or unpreparedness triggers stress, anxiety, or procrastination, as the brain's laziness and anxiety programs sabotage progress. Some people thrive under pressure, using acute stress for active procrastination. For example, preparing a presentation in 2 days instead of a week can work if the result is just as good. However, chronic reliance on this approach risks burnout. Individual differences, like being a lark, morning person, or owl, night person, affect productivity. These chronotypes are genetically determined, with cortisol peaks aligning with optimal work times, late morning for larks, after midnight for owls. Scheduling tasks or team meetings around 6 p.m., when larks and owls align, can maximize efficiency. Volitional control, where the parietal cortex overrides the frontal lobe's impulses, is key to productivity but can be impaired in conditions like ADHD. Lifespan and brain size. There's a direct relationship between brain size and lifespan. Animals of similar weight to humans, like capybaras or predators, have smaller brains and shorter lives. A capybara's brain is about 100 grams, a panther's slightly larger, and a great ape's even bigger, but the human brain is 3 times larger. This large brain, paired with a moderately sized body, allows us to support complex neural networks without excessive energy demands for movement or organ function. This balance enabled humans to develop speech, civilization, and abstract thinking, making us the first truly intelligent species. Our brain's complexity allows us to create a comprehensive picture of the world, named with words, setting us apart from millions of other species. Practical tips for brain health. To boost brain productivity and avoid decline. Move regularly. Engage in complex movements like dancing, sports, or fast-paced walks to stimulate dopamine and myokines. Even a 5-minute movement break can reboot your brain. Limit information overload. Practice dopamine fasting by taking breaks from social media and news to allow deeper processing. Prioritize sleep. Ensure enough slow-wave and paradoxical sleep to consolidate memories and refresh neural connections. Connect with others. Foster face-to-face interactions to release oxytocin and combat loneliness. Manage stress. Embrace acute stress for motivation but minimize chronic stress through relaxation, movement, or therapy. Reflect and analyze. Write down key thoughts after learning something new to process and retain information better. For example, commenting on what resonated with you after this talk helps move information from short-term to long-term memory. Conclusion. Our brain is a complex interplay of rational thought, emotional drives, and ancient survival mechanisms. By understanding how it works, its need centers, energy demands, and responses to stress, we can make better choices. Movement, social connection, sleep, and stress management are key to keeping our brain healthy and productive.